Hello and welcome to MxMLive. We are back again, and this time no ditching, no vanishing from the scene. We will be back with interviews every week with CEOs, with captains of industry, and all the people who matter. Well, in given the way the industry is going, there are a lot of people who matter from India and abroad, from the industry and from other sectors. But let's keep it at that. We have here with us Mr. Rana Barua. We've interviewed Mr. Rana Barua on MxM in the past, twice over, since he took charge at Havas, once in 2019 and the other in 2022. And now he is Group CEO, and I'm looking at my notes because it's a mouthful. Group CEO, Havas India, Southeast and North Asia, right? He has taken charge of that. And what does North Asia mean? It means India, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Japan, and South Korea. Gosh, 10 countries. Amazing. Hello, Rana-san. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you.
Will I wish you like they do in Japan or or in India? How does one now?
I think you've been kind enough to wish me in all the ways that you have already. So I think you're the best person for this.
Absolutely, but it was an amazing news to get the fact that you have taken charge of the region. And it's not that we've got people from India who have taken on international roles. There are quite a few of them now, but there are few of them who are occupying those international roles sitting here in India, and that's important. That's important, and of course we'll talk about the challenges of doing that. Let me ask you a direct question first, and let's then get into the easy questions, right? When we interviewed you in October 22, we asked you to give a score as to how Havas is doing. So what we'll do is we'll first look at Havas India and then get into the global role that you have. And you had given a score of 5.6, 5 to 6 on 10. How would you look at Havas in India right now? The entire group. The group it's no longer the small creative agency and the media agency. You have a host of other things. There's a PR agency that you acquired recently. So what would be your score if you have to give one?
Yeah, so I think it's a fair question to ask because actually a lot has happened since when we met. I think if you ask me that, even if I want to give myself a higher score, I will still peg myself a notch always lower so that we don't slow down, or at least what we want to do keeps, we stay at what we are focused on. So I will say that
thing that you're saying, you reach on time, you give a late time of arrival and then you reach early, so you people say "Vava," right? Is that what you're trying to do?
Yeah, so it's good to rate yourself, but my point is that because I'll tell you why I'm doing that. So I would rate myself saying that yes, definitely it's where we moved ahead to a 7 and doing fabulously well as a group, as reputation, as talent, as basic conversations, whether we call it about culture, whether it is size, we're ticking all the right boxes because now we've come together as a very strong leadership team, very solid senior team which is working together. Then things that are happening are naturally very positive out here. But I'm giving myself that little gap because I think with this we're starting another new journey where we've already started hitting the sweet spot with some of our existing agencies, which is about acknowledgement in terms of awards, in terms of acknowledgement in terms of international awards and shows and everything. But the journey started because I can see a lot of other agencies have started scoring gold out there. They're winning a lot more. So for me, naturally, I'm absolutely appreciative of the thing that internally we are recognized as one of the really high performing countries, which is what globally we've been told that we are one of the naturally scores which have really moved up overall in all forms. In all forms, they'll give us that scores. It's not about just in terms of size or stature or whatever, in terms of the way we've integrated, the way we are culturally bound, the way we have built ourselves across the 3 villages, the way our integration model is working, and finally, the way all groups and leadership is working, the succession teams, the leadership teams. So I think we are at a 7, Pradyuman, and it's a very healthy 7.
It's very clear that within Havas globally, India is rated fairly well, because the very fact that they have given you the top job indicates that is an endorsement of what you have brought to the table since 2019. It's interesting that you took over in 2019, took charge in 2019. There's somebody else not very far away from you who also took charge in 2019 for the second term, and there are these elections which are coming up now. But tell me something, and again, this is a second tough question, second tricky question, or nasty question, or whatever you might say. An agency is unfortunately judged by the awards that it gets, right? Havas has received awards, may not be the creative agency, but other agencies have won awards. But it's not been hot on the award circuit right now. For instance, the Effies, which happened recently, it did not, it was a lowly 16 with not too much. Now, are we saying that awards don't really matter in the final analysis, or it's just that you've done great work, but it's not been really worthy of awards?
No, so to answer your question very straightforward, it's a fabulous question. So please don't even get into the thing that that it's a hard question or a tough question. I think awards matter. So very clear. So you can't beat around the bush and say that, oh, awards don't matter, and I'm in the business. We don't make soaps here, or we are not making plants here, or we are creative people. End of the day, whether you're a media person or a part of the health industry, I think we are all in the business of ideas and creativity, whatever form it finally takes. It doesn't matter whatever. If it may come out as a PR idea, it may come out as a experiential marketing idea. It's the business of ideas and creativity. So of course awards matter. Has awards been the driven essence for India? Is it? If that's the question, then I would say that has not been the driven essence of India, because the idea for me, or the brief, was to first build an organization, get the culture right, get the people and teams right. In between, when COVID happened, naturally we lost track, like any other country or any other global company. We lost complete track. Probably things would have been a bit more different if those 2 years didn't happen, but naturally that's a hypothetical conversation. I think for me and for all of us, and that's what we are now trying to get into shape, is that it's not about what happened in the past. So for me, I don't look behind. My point is, what can we do now that you've got a lovely ecosystem of excellent companies, quite a good bunch of people right at the top, and what can we do going ahead? So I think the product is getting shaped much better than we had thought how it would happen. You're going to hear a lot more conversations about interesting conversations and maybe very innovative kind of conversations and ideas that's getting created. And maybe it won't be a land of plenty, but it will be a land of few, where you would see interesting case studies, interesting engagement conversations coming out from the world of creative, if I may say so. I'm not talking about the other agencies only. I'm not saying that whether Conran and Showbiz and things are doing what they are doing, but you will also find hardwired creative solutions, and maybe a lot more stepped up presence in award shows and all, which is something which we have taken up now as the next step with the team which is now leading the show.
You've done it in the past with contracts, so which had received many awards when you were helming that. So clearly you have done that. You spoke about conversations, and do we hear more conversations about more acquisitions in the future?
Yeah, so acquisitions for us naturally, for us acquisitions, like to answer simply, was never about a growth curve or a growth conversation. We were looking at these acquisitions because we knew that if you had to build something in one of the fastest growing economies in the world, you will have to build an ecosystem, whether you like it or not. You will need to have a lot of these expertise that kind of build a reason for a client, and you need to have them very clearly. So what existed globally is what you were trying to figure out if it was a strong offering in India. you would definitely do it. So if you look at all the companies that exist, whether they've come through acquisition or whether they've been expanded into India through whether many of these companies in both creative and media is because the need of the hour and the need of the land is the same. So we kept that going. In terms of acquisitions, if I really look, there are certain expansion plans. We are looking at certain spaces which I know we need definitely. Again, it's not because I think so, because I think we do have a strong conversation globally in the world of, let's say, transformation consulting, which is very strong. Havas CX, which is becoming a very big conversation with a very senior CEO who came on board earlier this month. So for us, CX is something that we are looking at. Does India have a very high-end data tech or smart tech kind of a conversation where it can come into India and maybe look after global operations? Is there something in as simple as a social media digital agency? Is there something which is very strong, which is very nifty, which are doing very great, interesting work in the world of social media of any forms? It can be media of any form, but is there a bunch of people or talent which is available that is doing interesting work that can join hand in glove with the Havas creative agency and do faster work, quicker work, interesting conversations, So I think there are those gaps, but it's not too many. So point is that what we needed to build an ecosystem is there. What we now need to do is to integrate this ecosystem better and do better work, integrate to do more work within the group together, because that's something which our group does phenomenally well globally. They work very closely together, which I've seen, and I've seen results, and I've seen results both in terms of work, and I've seen both results in terms of numbers, which is the revenue that they generate when they work within. And some of the countries are doing fabulously well, and I envy those countries because it is a wired up machinery where they work across their groups and they're doing work across, let's say, X number of clients, but there are many companies which are working for that X number of clients. So that's for me is something which if I can get right, I'll be very happy, because what is the use of getting 18, 19, 20 companies? It's not self-ego. It is about creating a machinery which works so well within each other that clients feel that, do I really need to step out? Do I really need to go out and look for a design agency? Do I really need to go out and look for a CX agency or a PR agency? If my media agency has performance, play, digital, everything, do I really need to move out and look for somebody? So I think that's something which can make things better.
But tell me something, while you have these agencies and it's all a big village that you're talking about, and you are the chief farmer, so to say, but are you able to harvest all the, the skills of everybody over there, or are these still silos that you're looking at? So for instance, if I'm interested in PR, I go to PR Pandit, and and it's just like any other agency, or am I coming to Havas, and hence I could be actually doing a lot more than just PR?
So that is the beauty of this whole ecosystem. So what you're saying is absolutely right. That is because of legacy businesses and legacy networks where the brands have been bigger than the network. So if you look at certain legacy networks where individual brands have been bigger than the network, naturally you're going to the brand that is in your head. In our case, naturally, the conversation is very different. The way we build it bottom up. So if you build it via expertise, you may come in through an expertise which is PR, like you mentioned. But what is also happening is that they are opening up conversations for creative agencies, media agencies, digital agencies, showbiz. So you'll be surprised to know that post PR Pandit coming in, we probably got 14 or 15 inquiries from their clients in various sectors, of which we probably already moved into 6 or 7, because they never had that opportunity before, and vice versa, where clients are coming to us and saying that now that PR Pandit is with you, can you please open up a conversation or engage with them? And suddenly PR Pandit is flooded with conversations coming from us to various conversations for them, and they are now pitching together or they're working together. The idea is, and I think something which is quite interesting, it took me a while to understand, because while we were building this, I think I was also getting quite excited or carried away with the names at the top. But then you realize it's actually the expertise that what works better. So if you just flip over the lid and you start playing the expertise-led game and say that when you're talking to a client, and I nowadays speak to a client and I never mention names of the agencies because I don't think they know also. They don't, maybe they've never read about it. So what you're trying to gloat about, you're trying to say, oh, I've got this agency, no, it doesn't matter to them. When I speak to my clients or I interact with them over a drink or I'm having coffee and they'll say, so what's happening? What are your challenges? They'll say, you know what, I'm really struggling with this. I say, but do you know that I have a performance marketing agency? Oh, I didn't know that. So who does that? Then I'll say, oh, I've got pivot roots. Oh, give me the name. Now, the conversation is different, and it's taken me a while. I'm admitting to the fact that it is not the brand which is greater than the expertise. It's the expertise which is bigger than the brand. If you can play that, it's an easier way of having a conversation with a client because it's then not a hard sell. You're solving a problem and it's an easier way. Now, which is why I'm saying I have seen how successful this model is globally. If I see the numbers that what we call it as an integration model within, it's so strong in some markets of ours. The numbers are staggering. It's multi-dollars, the kind of money that they're making when they're working together. I am small. I'm so small in front of them. If I focus my entire next 2 years here, I'll probably just grow organically without any acquisition or expansion plan. If I just get this model right, that some of these guys just work together, they start pitching together, they start winning businesses together. I kid you not, Pradyuman, the amount of business that's lying in front is crazy because each agency has unique clients. Each agency has unique large clients. Look at all the businesses and look at the top 10 clients. And then when I map it out, I realize that how much potential business is lying. Remember, we are a much smaller group. We don't have size and scale of the other networks. We can work quicker, we are faster, but the talent is super, super good. It's the same super talented bunch of people who are sitting here who are naturally giving faster solutions. So I think we have got a great opportunity to play here.
So you are saying that you may acquire some people or some agencies. You also mentioned about a CEO who is just on board. Could you reveal names, or is that all under wraps right now?
We've announced that David Schulman, who's come as global CEO of CX.
So nobody in India. That's nobody something. In India has any talent in India. You've had some visits recently. Of course, Bobby has moved on a few months back.
Yeah.
And then there's some other news about another senior person who's maybe just moving on.
There's a conversation on, but no, he's not moved on yet because we are trying to see how, because earlier there was a conversation about somebody, then that person stayed back and took over a chief transformation officer role profile. So there's nothing concrete yet, but we are looking at what we can do within if there is something possible.
Great. Now, there's a saying in Hindi which is saying, "Aa bail mujhe maar," right? You were already, it's not that I've seen you in the past. You have your hairline has already receded a fair bit, and you've taken on more roles other than India. You have Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Japan, and South Korea. Now, as you know, in India, especially in your industry, people give CEO suffixes of South Asia because it sounds good, right? Now, but this is a fair bit. As if the stress of one country was not enough. Now you've taken on 9 more. Just why? Of course, it's good for you, but I'm saying, is it? At the end of the day, it's an executive role, right? You are responsible for the P&Ls. You are responsible for the growth. You are responsible for that. So is it? How do you view it in your own career path?
No, 2 ways. No, you're right. Career-wise, it sounds fabulous. It's something that it's like you started by saying that. Of course, it's an appreciation from the global team and Yannick and everybody that if you've done well, how do you ensure that this person is naturally shown that you can do more? I think, but there are 2 ways of seeing it, and I think in my head, those are the 2 ways I see it. I think it's about very clearly that it's the trust that the team has across the world, that as managers and leaders, how clear and straightforward and transparent is this leader who's whatever done for India can do it for the other regions? Because if you can't, then you can't. It's very clear. It's not like everybody can or everybody can't. And I'm not talking about aptitude here. I'm talking about the leadership skill. Because remember, this is culturally very different. India is run in a very autocratic way, and we all feel we are demigods. That is not how these countries work. So if you are a very straightforward, a very globally accepted kind of a leader where you can fit in from one country or to one country to the other, and you can move around and you can fit in easily, you can probably then fit in not only in this region, you can fit in any part of the world. I think that's number one. And that makes it simpler for a global ecosystem to accept you as a leader, because you're talking about stuff like culture, you're talking about great places to work, you're talking about women leadership, you're talking about spark, you're talking about middle management thing, you're talking about what can I do with conversations where how can I build center of excellences, what can I do with leadership, can I push them out? I think the conversation points are very different, and the reason why then Asia got added is because if you look at the way this region is building, we want Asia to also start growing faster. So if there is a massive learning and a successful operation sitting out of India, and a equally, not maybe as successful, but a strong operation sitting in Asia in these countries, then is there a way you can combine forces and make it happen? Because then it becomes like a one big Asia story. So it's just not an India story. There is a one big Asia story for the group, which suddenly in 1 year, if let's say with all your blessings and all best wishes, if we do better on this part of the world, so it's not an individual victory. It's a victory for Havas. Why? Because tomorrow for global pitches, global conversations, it will be a one Asia story to say, how strong are you in Asia? We are very strong in India, and we are very strong in Singapore, plus, which is the markets you were saying.
You mentioned
that
about
gives a
you mentioned about the style of working, etc., is different, but clearly, even in terms of for you to manage these things, because each country has its own nuances, each country has its own idiosyncrasies, and you have it's not just small countries that you have. You have countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, Japan, South Korea, which are booming. So in that sense, the ask is fairly interesting.
Yeah, it is. I agree. It is. I agree, because I think you're right. I think what I'm also doing is naturally I'm also prioritizing certain markets, and I'm also looking at how we can move faster in certain markets where we probably are far more established than the others. And also taking on the challenges, knowing very well that there are certain markets where there are very strong legacy brands, like in South Korea and Japan, which is kind of controlled by certain very large networks. So you're not going to really kill yourself and try and break that market and create something which is not going to happen for you overnight. So, I've literally prioritized the markets into literally 5+3, or let's put it this way, that I've categorized them to say that these are the 4-5 markets, which is like in my head, and I think anybody, it's no brainer here. It's Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia is, and maybe a Vietnam or stroke Philippines as the top 5, where you can start moving conversations, because this is strong talent here, there is tech here, Thailand is very strong for creative, Indonesia can be a complete hub for a lot of conversations. Singapore is already very strong with us because Havas Media is doing well. We have a very strong creative agency out there called BlockJ, very successful, strong agency. So I think, if we can get that little prioritization going right, and then you fix the nuts and bolts, it'll be a better place to be in the end of 12 months than where we are right now, where we are pretty much smooth and sailing. I just want to move the needle a bit more quicker to see whether it can get into a growth path. It has to be in the growth path for sure.
I know you're not going to reveal financials, but and since you mentioned about Singapore being your top city, so can I say, can you share what your targets are going to be, La?
The targets are naturally to do better than what they're doing now, Pradyuman. So that you're right, I can't share financial, but I can tell you something that it's a what I have in India is pretty much as much strong as what the region has. So it's a pretty large gambit that way, because if India numbers is X, then the region is adding a similar X to me. So it's suddenly from X has become 2X. It's not whether X is bigger than Y. It's pretty strong. The only difference is India alone has become very large, and the regions are adding a similar number. So out of which Singapore is probably the driving factor, which is good, which is absolutely good, because for me, Singapore is a very important hub for me to build the region from there. So I will operate out of India, I'm going to also be playing a very important role out of Singapore, but I will also ensure that a perception, because Singapore, the perception is very positive. Whatever I picked up, whatever little interactions I've done, it's not like, because media agency has been doing phenomenally well for the last few years. Jackie, who's the CEO, has done phenomenal. And BlockJ is naturally a very well-known creative agency with Rowena and Joji at the top. So that rub-off needs to move on to the other regions because we are good in individual parts, And I think you're going to hear more conversations in forms of a lot of these expertise of the names that you see in the India roster of agencies going there. Havas Play is going to become very active. There's a CSA, which is data agency, is going to become active. Conren is going to become very active in the region. We are looking at, playing Havas market in a very active way. There are conversations of very early conversations of is there some acquisitions or strategic alliances that we can do to boost up the markets. So all that has become
Great. Sounds very good. Sounds very good. But perhaps I think it's the right thing to do is to speak with you once again in January 2025, or
exactly,
or February. Let's move on to the industry. As such, we've spoken about Havas. Obviously, there's a certain amount of stuff that you can't reveal. Are you the industry is perhaps going through its craziest time, right? Which you have AI and you have a host of other things that are coming in. Would you say that? Would you agree that these are really tough and trying times for the entire industry?
It is. I think it is definitely challenging times. I don't know. I tell them that is it something like it's like the end of the world or something? I don't think so. But challenging times indeed, because naturally there's a paradigm shift happening while we are speaking. So when I look at the industry, naturally there's a lot of new conversations that are happening in the world of tech, in the world of CX, in the world of end-to-end consumer interactions. They're talking about AI. So of course there are a lot of things, and of course technology is going to gallop faster than we think. But I think what is also heartening to know is that after all that, we still wait for those big award shows, and after all that, we still think what are the entries that are going to come. So every year we discuss the same at the beginning of the year because there's something very fascinating like this that happens, which is not disruptive. The idea is to embrace them and figure out. But I think it's still the business of ideas and conversations that really matter more. If you can just rise above that, we need to just figure out,
Precisely. Yeah. And because it is the business of ideas, and because it's the business of creativity, you have so many young agencies which are doing so very well. For instance, and even on the award circuit, this time's award, the Grand Effie was won by an independent. Not to say that the person has been in the industry for a fair amount of time, but clearly there are a lot of young players who are out there now. Do folks like you, do big agencies, network agencies have reason to worry? Because suddenly here you had only the big players competing with each other, but now the competition is there from even the smallest of players, somebody who's just set up shop yesterday.
So I think it's like the idea is, I will never call them smallest of players. I think what we are saying is that the talent is everywhere. So I think we must recognize that means you can't undermine talent. So you're right. When Enormous won the the grand FE, it was like heartening. Why? Because being president of the ad club, when I got to know finally, because I was not sitting in the final jury, you're not supposed to, but I had initiated, but I was very happy because that's exactly the mission that we are in, that you encourage the younger talent and so many independent talents across the country or even in the world. I'm seeing, for example, when the Uncommon joined us last year, it was fascinating because it was in Cannes when I had asked Donna that she said, I've got some very good news which we will announce after Cannes. I said, what is it? She said, I can't. It is very tight-lipped because it's a fabulous agency. And I kept thinking which agency, and I thought of X name and Y name, and the obvious names were coming which were not sold or were available. And then suddenly, boom, the name came was Uncommon. Uncommon is a 5-year-old agency. That's it. Started fresh, one of the hottest. The point is, it is there. It's also there in the market. And what happens as a difference, I think, Pradyuman, is that that's exactly that. If I wish we can build that thing, I think they're fearless. I think the difference between the structured agencies or the networks as you're calling them, and the ones who are independent is the fearless, because they don't fear that they can lose anything. We fear about everything. So I think
You
that's
look
the
at acquiring.
culture.
Would you look at acquiring any agencies like these in India?
If I get an opportunity and if there is one, please let me know, because I would love to.
Well, there are so many of them, you know that.
No, but it's the point is, again, the reason why I smiled about that is because there might be many of them, but I think the conversation is that we need to be very clear about why are we looking at something, because what we need is, some bit of stability and continuity, and not just one-off. So that's where the problem happens. So if you see a lot of these independents that we are looking at, we need a bit more of consistency in terms of whether we should look at them for acquisition. I think they're doing phenomenally well, so hats off to them. So it's good
For
that
instance,
we have.
Dentsu did fairly well acquiring Taproot, and of course, then the original team of Taproot went away, but they did a fairly decent job. So, is that something that you would perhaps look at all?
I see, will I say no, it's a complete shut shop? No, because if there is something that I feel, or the group feels, or we feel that there is a conversation that we can build with somebody who can create this disruptive conversation and ideas, of course, why not?
You mentioned about Ad Club, and you're going to finish the first year, and as it is the normal style, you will take on a second term as well. Are you happy with the way things are? My sense is that if India can play Pakistan, if China and India can speak with each other, why can't you just get an Ogilvy to compete? And the Creative Abbey, which is, let's face it, we have Publisher Award, we have PR Award, we have Hajar other awards which have become part of Abbey, but the Creative Abbey is the mainstay now. And when you don't have the big players there, as they are there in FE, it doesn't have the same uh, uh, fun element in it, if I might say the word.
I I think that what has happened is that because of historical reasons, naturally, which has been much before that, the rift happened much before, and that naturally will take time to change. We reached out to Ogilvy through the chair of Abby's this year, who's Ajay Kakkar, and I think the only conversation that was they've already committed to 2 awards with their new Hipsiba, who's the new chair, told him that. So we had a very fair conversation on that. But most of the other agencies, except Ogilvy, all have said they would participate, and that's the heartening news. We are hoping that most of them will come back, and I'm talking about everybody, because except Ogilvy, who already committed this year to 2 awards, which was the commitment that was given last year. But I think it's a much more. I won't say that we jump leaps and bounds, but I can just tell you one thing with all honesty is that there is far more congeniality in the group that's working across most of the networks. It's not as hardwired as before, where for some reason, maybe some years back or 10 years back, which is way beyond for me to even have a point of view, where things have just gone into very hardwired silos and zones. I think people are far more, so, if I sit in 3 years of I have PK, I have Anu, we talk to each other. We understand each other. You know that Dheeraj is part of my team. There is Subbu, who's from Low, who's part of my team. So we talk to each other. We understand each other. Now we are naturally trying to break all these silos or those conversations that had happened. Now we'll see finally how many people come in. Of course, it's a slow walk still, because, like you said, that there are 1 or 2 agencies which are not coming. But we've spoken individually to VML, we've spoken to DDB, we've spoken to the other agencies who stayed out. But most of them have said that yes, why not? They would want to come back. They would like to participate, because it's taking them to also change their entire thing. But I think our new leadership in most places, Pradyuman, is also helping, because we know each other, we understand the strengths and weaknesses, and we understand that if we don't build this, then it doesn't impact us maybe, but it impacts the future talent. What are they going to be thinking, and what are they going to work? So let's hope that we do have more participation. I'm just hoping for the best this time.
One of the other factors which is there in our various associations, and I was speaking with somebody a couple of weeks back, that say 20 years back, you had people in their 30s and early 40s also becoming part of industry associations like the Ad Club. And currently you do not have too many young people out there who are participating in various industry forums. Is that something, that, and perhaps you are among the younger of them all, if I might say, right? So, is that something that is a worry for you as you look ahead?
Yeah, it is. I won't deny that it's not like I've consciously made an attempt to get younger people. So it's probably my fault that I've not seen beyond. But I think what I've tried is to get a healthy mix of industry participation. What I mean by that, from all publishing houses, it's just not television or something, but it's television, digital, advertising, radio, print, everywhere. So that's one thing I tried to do, so to ensure that there is equal participation. I think what is worrying is something more, which sometimes I wonder is that how much involved are we in it and how engaged are we in it. I think it was far more passionate some years back. I think what we need to do is probably, you're right, maybe, get a healthier mix. So we've got maybe a man-women ratio right in terms of are there enough participation, you have all that. But you're right, maybe that is an interesting point to consider, that whether we should make it a bit more, or at least open up some seats for some more younger people who are very passionate about this and who want to play an active role.
And also who are there in the committee, not because they can bring in some revenues, no,
No,
but
no,
they can also.
no, but that also is very tough nowadays because the markets are so tough. You saw what happened in this year's FEs. It was impossible to raise, any sponsorship, not for any other reason. It's just that the markets have become so tough. The original ones or the obvious ones who were supporting us have gone through a lot of, in terms of budget cuts and all. So we don't want to impose ourselves on that. But what I'm more concerned about is the engagement parameter, because there's so much more you can do if you have time. There's so much more, for example, the stuff we do with Micah, or the stuff that we are trying to do with young Abbeys, or the stuff we are trying to do with, we are doing MB's masterclass. Now, Dheeraj and Subbu are going to be working on FE's masterclass, because that's something which is very engaging. If you start building masterclass within the group companies and go down, there are, the fact that there are only 3 or 4 companies which always wins or sweeps the FEs, right? What about the remaining 20 or 30 or 40 who are also there? The point is that that's the idea. How do you propagate FEs into other agencies taught by the masters? By, so Jeetu said, I'm very happy to come and help. Subbu said, I will help. Dheeraj said, I'll help. Now, these are the guys who've been winning. So we want to build that. Now, these are conversation points where you need to take time out. But I think you're right about the fact that maybe the people at the top are just not the people, because sometimes I also realize I don't have time. Now if I tell you that I have time to also do ad club, you'll start laughing, because anyway I've got this new entire responsibility, and then I'm stretching myself out here. So it's become a bit of a stretch.
Yeah,
but
I totally agree with
a
you.
younger.
The revenue scene is a problem. I'm facing it, and unless and until you decide to sell awards, and there are people who do sell awards, you will not get the revenues very easily, right? One last question. We are living in the age of artificial intelligence and chat GPT, and you have various AI tools available to even create some creative work. Now, is that something that you are often asked by some smarter like marketers that, hey, listen, why do you need to do this? Your creative folks are anyway looking at chat GPT, etc., for ideas. Or is that something that is a worry, not just in your agency, but across this industry?
It is. It goes without doubt that it's going to become a continuous conversation that's going to keep refraining everywhere. The worry is not about the time efficiency or work that comes out. The worry is about the quality of and what happens finally. That's the worry, because sometimes you see the same image being used at 5 different places and you're going to slowly panic that what the hell happened here. Or a copy which sounds so machine-led that you will realize where is emotive conversation out here, because the problem is that what's happening is that people tend to use it as shortcuts and all. But what is very clear is that it's an efficiency system that's going to happen. Now, whether clients want it or not, but there is a lot of work that AI is enabling you to make it simpler and make things cheaper if you see it that way. So I think what we are doing, naturally, I think everybody is doing, there's amount of investment that's happening in AI is to help you work faster. There's things which are going to happen more efficient way. There are network companies which are investing money. Similarly, Havas is also has a full-fledged AI machinery at work, whether it's a partnership with Adobe, which has, made things work faster, or whether the way our production team, which is POP, as we call it, Pros on Pixels, which is using the entire AI-enabled technology to make things happen faster. We've started embracing it. Maybe India is a bit more, as always, we try to resist it a bit more than the others who've literally adapted it or moved faster on it. But I think we use it in a personal basis more, but in the work scene, I'm definitely seeing a lot of conversation and instances in India where clients are asking for it, and definitely the agency people are using it. But it's here to stay, Pradyuman. So there's something that the sooner we start understanding how we use it better and how we use it smarter, I think there's no running away from it.
Great. Thank you very much, Rana, for this amazing conversation. And we always have an amazing conversation, but this time on video. And we should do that more often. Perhaps you're sitting right now in your village in India, and we'll do that the next time when you are perhaps in Bali, or some interesting picturesque marina sands, or wherever else. But all the very best.
Thank you.
All the very best for what you are taking on. I do know that these are interesting and trying times for the industry in general. But obviously, your star is on the ascendant, and I hope you do well. When we interview the next time, we will talk a lot more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pradyuman. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's always wonderful meeting you.